Hey, what's up? It's me, your girl Nia. I am coming to you from Black Exploration with Nia. Drinking your water and minding your business is the best. That's when you literally have a chemical imbalance that is causing the personality defect of narcissism. I only want to talk about this because I have supported men through this. And I know that when men are in dark times, they drink alcohol or they have lots of sex. What value
Can you
bring to this person and see in them?
So how much did you have to fix your relationship with yourself first in order to have a successful relationship with someone else, even in the realm of dating?
When it comes down to it, people's opinions are not facts, it's just their opinions. Hey everyone, you are back for another episode of Black Exploration with Nia. You know, on this episode, we are going to be talking about intimacy with my boy, James Bush, who is also a therapist. So this is going to be a really intrinsic conversation around authenticity. We know that on this show, we always keep it real. So no fluff, no chasers. We're just in our zone, in our spirit, and we're speaking fully and authentically according to who we are. So, James, thanks for being here.
Original. Thank you for having me on. This is gonna be fun.
It is going to be really fun. It's going to be great. You know why? Because I've supported you in this space. You supported me in this space, and it's more so about like sharing the love, especially that we're both therapists and we're all here to gain awareness and bring our audience that mental health awareness. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your platform, and what it is you provide your clients.
Well, my name is James Bush. I'm a licensed professional counselor in a bunch of states. I'm the host of the Mind of a Man show, which is on the iHeartRadio affiliate. I enjoy what I do. I work with a lot of men from different capacities, whether it is in relationship sense, or if it's personal journey, where they at, looking for direction, especially the ones who are going through a breakup or a recent divorce. Those are one of my fun clients to work with because you get a person who is at somewhat of a crossroads or a very broken moment, and just to see how over the months and years of working together, how they are able to grow and the questions they're asking and how they're able to just find life.
Yeah. So thank you for that introduction. I apologize. I got mixed up on my phone and a message came through.
No worries.
So tell the audience a little bit about your journey as far as like intimacy goes. I know that we've on this show, we tackle 4 key areas, which is physical and mental health, spirituality, intimacy, and financial generational wealth and security. So each client, each guest.
I'm a client now. Oh man, wow! I like this.
I have my other hat on.
Okay.
So each guest chooses the area of their expertise that they're exploring. So you chose the area of intimacy. And the funny part about that is most of the men who I come across on my platform, which is LinkedIn, when I ask them that question, the 2 areas that come to play that they want to improve themselves on this season is intimacy and financial generational wealth and literacy. So tell me a little bit about like why did you choose intimacy and what are you exploring when it comes to intimacy with yourself?
I mean, sometimes I think it's one of my, I guess, and if I'm being honest, one of my greatest weaknesses. One of the things that I've noticed is that it's been such a ride in the last couple of years when we're looking at your own emotional intelligence, your self-awareness, self-management, and how all those things play out and how you present to others around you and how that can promote or impede you from connecting with another individual. And I find it so fascinating because sometimes we don't see who we are from others' lens. We just see us. I just know who I am and I know how I present. I know how I come off, and the rest is the rest. But I've been told a couple of things from a couple of loved ones or a couple of, cool people, and it's a gut check. And so it's something of you can't go and earn. I mean, I can't go and work a couple of extra hours to make a couple of extra dollars so that my bank account is gonna be nice.
Right.
that I know about. Um, and I just have to kind of find that balance. And so intimacy, the ability to connect, one with the intimacy within oneself, but then also with those of your common man, is so fascinating. It's a journey that I'm on right now.
So tell me about like so for a man or a woman who is not familiar with what intimacy is, right? Because intimacy can be a lot of different things. What is intimacy
Yes.
for you?
I mean, intimacy is, to me, I look at it as is knowing how the machine works. It's,
Hmm.
man, the nuts and bolts of it. So sometimes when I look at it like that cartoon when you had Big Ben the clock in the UK, and all of a sudden you pull back the face of the clock and you saw all the inner mechanisms and the gadgets and the workings and all the sprockets and how they were connecting and turning together. And then when you found out how if you stop one of those instruments, the clock would not function as it usually would. And that's
Hmm.
the inner workings of an individual. And so now when I look at myself or I'm looking at the connections or the relationships that I have, I say to myself, wow, it's like if I hop on that one trigger in that individual,
Yeah.
that affects our interaction, that affects how we connect with one another. That pretty much blows up this whole moment where it escalates to some place that it doesn't need to be.
Right.
Just one trigger. But in order to have understanding, you have to do the work. And so you have
Right.
to have that journey within yourself to say, okay, who am I? What do I like? And a lot of us don't know that. Also.
So we were talking about the word doing the work. I think it's such a broad like saying, and
Oh
mental health is like
gosh.
a good thing right now. Even though it's always been a thing, right? It's just getting that credibility and that recognition, especially within the Black community, since
Uh-huh.
it happened. Now, when we talk about doing the work, tell me a
Okay.
little bit about your healing journey. When did you start, and what motivated you to really delve deep into that healing side of intimacy?
Divorce.
Okay, okay, okay.
What I found is that sometimes for some people, I'm just saying for some people, and then for me as well, you're no more vulnerable than when your life takes on a whole nother form
Yeah,
just at the drop of a hat, at a pen stroke, at the thought of someone who just says, look, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like, wow. And so now you're at one of the greatest moments in your life, but sometimes it could be the most pressing
okay,
because everything that you knew up until that point was just on autopilot. You're just like,
right,
man, this is who I am, this is what I have to do, this, yada, yada, yada. Now it's forcing you to kind of just say, okay, who am I right now? What is
right,
going on? What do I want? And like, what am I after? Am I after success? Am I after money? Am I after love? Am I after connection? What do I really want? And then also too, once you start to kind of get that profile together of who you are, then understanding who are the people I want around to be around me in those spaces. And
right.
I think that's what kind of helped me because at that moment, as I said, man, I didn't want no more of the same old, same old. I had to have something different.
Right. So tell me a little bit about when it comes to your healing journey, when you found out you got a divorce, like was it something that hit you out of nowhere? Were you guys having like difficulties when it was coming up? Like explain to me. I mean, this is
And
all about authenticity. So we're not trying to be in your business. We're just
look,
trying
look, 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 look. I've already look. My clients, a lot of them know my story because that's
to.
how I'm able to relate to them, and that's how they're able to trust me with certain
Mhm.
information. Sometimes, as clinicians, you got to give something to get something from them that's going to ultimately help them. And so, one of the things is I found was that I didn't see it coming. I mean, I had bit into the model of okay, I'm a husband, provider, protector. I'm doing those things that needs to be done. The status quo of what I guess quote unquote men in America do. However, though, there were so many different things that I missed, and also not necessarily about my ex partner, but within myself. I mean, I started to realize that I wasn't fulfilled in what I was doing. I wasn't fulfilled with my relationships. I didn't like life as it presumed. I pulled a lot of punches. I wasn't able to be my most authentic self. I wasn't able to explore. I mean, and you're gonna laugh at this word, but I wasn't happy.
Mhm.
and I don't like to base things off of an emotion or of why you make moves and why you pursue other pursuits and things like that. But I wasn't happy because I wasn't able to be the person that I knew inside that I could be. And so it forced me to make a change.
So let me ask you a question because I think oftentimes, so I'm in part of my healing journey is, and of course you get to a point where you want to learn more intimacy, you want to learn about past relationships, you want to know about your patterns and how you show up because that helps you with, aligning with what you're looking for and what you need. Now, when it comes to men, I'm like, men are from Mars and women are from Venus,
We
right?
sure are.
We're completely different
Yes.
energies. We're completely different, almost feels like a species when it comes to the psyche, right?
Yes.
So tell me
Yes.
a little bit about like intimacy and just particularly Black men. And I mean, this podcast is for all people, but I
Right.
highlight Black exploration because
Yes.
oftentimes we're left out of that conversation and we're having to guide ourselves through Eurocentric standards, and that doesn't help our psyche evolve. So, just from a Black man's perspective, when it comes to intimacy, what are some things that women are missing?
Well, I think one of the things that I think many of us, whether it's Black men or women, is that much of our development has been shaped in trauma. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah. I think we talked about that the last time I was speaking to you too. That's so true. Tell me more about that.
and so because a lot of the stuff has been shaped in trauma, we are identifying, we are connecting, we are interacting us from a trauma lens sometimes
Yeah.
of, well, look, I don't want to get got, you're not going to be the one tonight or anything like that. And unfortunately, it doesn't. Brene Brown makes this statement, and I like it. She says, without vulnerability, there is no intimacy. And
Right.
so when we know that to be true, then it's to the point of, okay, who's going to be the first one to flinch? Who's going to be the first one to say, hey, you know what? It's not about, man, my way or the highway. It's about us and what do we need to do for us to come closer together and connect. Now, when I say when it comes to men, sometimes that could be somewhat off-putting because men at times we are very territorial, we are warrior-like, everything like that. And so, I mean, the abilities for us to put down our guard
Hmm.
so that someone can come in and actually see us, it's a little bit challenging because one thing that many of us were taught as growing up, you never let them see you sweat. Don't
Right.
show your weakness, because when they show your weakness, then you know that they got you. So I think it comes down to, as far as finding those safe places where you can trust the individual that you are in or you're connecting with. And that's difficult.
Was it so? So just talking about like a person who, like, for in your experience, like you got a
Yes.
divorce and that was
Yes.
why you trusted. How was it hard? Was it difficult for you to get back out there to trust women again? Did you go through like an experience where you were just kind of like dogging women because you didn't want to engage with women?
Ah!
Tell me
well,
more.
see, so here's the thing. I went through a process where, quote unquote, from the women that I dated, they said I was mean. You know,
Oh,
they, they,
okay.
they, they said I was mean. I was like, it's a very amazing thing. I'm like, no guys have ever said that to me. Like, I'm mean. They're like, you're just James. I'm like, yeah. But from women that I would interact with, he's mean. It's like me. It's like, why is he always like this? Or he's just, very like, I mean, it was me executing my boundaries far left. Before, my boundaries were very porous, they weren't rigid. I
Mm.
mean, I was that guy, man, that, hey, look, whatever. But because of the things that had happened, I had become very closed off. I wasn't open. And again, like I said, wasn't the one that was going to get got again because of the situation that happened. And so now I find myself moving back from that. That takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of stress and strain to kind of keep your guard up, to always to be in that space with someone, especially the wrong type of person. And that's another thing that I had to learn about in this whole process, is that a lot of the stuff that went down or what happened or like that, sometimes we're always looking at that person, but then you have to go and look back at yourself. It's like, that's where my healing took place. What did I do wrong? Where
Yeah.
did I miss it? Where did I mess up? What didn't I learn? What were some of the myths that I grew up beholding from maybe a Christian point of view or a cultural point of view that were totally erroneous? And no, I'm not saying that the Bible is wrong, but when we go to church on Sundays, everything that come across that pulpit ain't on point. Some of it's just opinion. And so sometimes when you feed off of that morsel, it could be dangerous. It could be deadly and deadly to a relationship. And so I had to learn ultimately about okay, this doesn't work. As one of my colleagues said, during our development in childhood, we learn a lot of stuff. As adults, we spend time unlearning a lot of the stuff that we learned as children. And I said, that's so powerful because I needed that. I needed to kind of say, okay, here's who I am in this space, and being able to embrace and accept that the most important relationships you have on this earth is with yourself. And so I had to get back to that place of loving, understanding, growing, grooming, and protecting the individual within me.
So can I ask you a question about like your revelation from connecting when in the space of marriage? Do you believe in marriage?
Do I now, or did I?
Do you now?
Oh yeah, I believe in. I definitely believe in marriage. Yes.
Has your perspective of marriage changed? Like,
oh hell yes.
What's the difference between marriage from James Bush prior to divorce versus after?
One thing I would say is that the term equally yoked is very important to me, because being able to land in spaces where you can truly be yourself. I mean, and I'm talking about just exist, where we all are different. And the dating portion taught me about this, is that how different many of us are when we come together, and the amount of energy it takes to work through those differences is amazing, but it happens. So for me, it's that being equally yoked, being with someone who is on your wavelength, who understands, who can vibe with what you do and you with what they do. It's like one hand that washes the other, understanding that. But if it's not there, then it's not there. And it doesn't make you a bad person or them a bad person. It's just not the right fit. And so I grab hold on that, because I was just said, okay, cool. There are a lot of people out here, good, honest, wonderful people, but they just don't fit well together. Okay, right. So now we'll take that fit. Now take the work that it is involved in nurturing that relationship and the connection that you have with that person over months, over years. Take complacency that kind of gets in the way. Take life's peaks and valleys at times that gets in the way, as well as that. And the whole idea of connection, marriage, it's a new form. It's a new idea, because it's not something that you can base on what your grandfather and your grandmother did. No, you just look at it. Yeah, I can see after 3 years, man, how you're tired of this and you're ready to leave. I can see after 5 or 6 years, you're ready to go. But it's just a continual effort, and it takes a lot of work. And what I will say is, even as a therapist, I was not aware of how much work it took to maintain a healthy and thriving relationship.
What would be your 3 key takeaways from divorce?
The 3 key takeaways from I tell people all the time, I learned more about marriage and divorce than I did the whole marriage itself. I was married 15 years. I mean, for real. But I'll say one thing in the divorce is that you must be yourself.
Okay.
You got to be yourself. Whether a person stays or goes. I mean, we can curse on this thing, can't we?
Yes.
Okay. So I have this statement where I say that, look, man, when you're meeting people, be you. Whether it's you, like, if a lot of they like video games, like, fuck, play the video game you want to play, man. Live how you live. Don't try to go and reserve this individual so that, man, it possibly can, maybe cajole or sway someone to no, be yourself. And I say, if the bitch burns down within the bitch, meaning the relationship, that is, burns down within the first 15 seconds, let that motherfucker burn. Because I mean,
do you think men are afraid of the relationship ending? So I always get opposite.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Oh, wow. I mean, how many guys out there will try to transform themselves? They'll hold themselves back. They will suppress portions of their being so that they can remain, so that they don't want to be lonely, so they have some form of companionship or like that. Because I mean, how many times can you just sit and turn on Pornhub and whack one off? That gets old after a while. And so my point being is, you have to be able to be yourself. You have to find those individuals who are in alignment with you. Mm-hmm. But when you don't do that, you set yourself up for heartache and pain later on, because it's like, y'all not on the same pattern. Y'all, what can y'all actually do together? What do y'all find fulfillment in? And sometimes people don't. So there's one thing is be yourself. Also, too, men, handle your business. You should never be in a state where state that is a place of being, that is, where you are reliant on someone else to tell you who you are. I say that is because when I went through the divorce, I was blessed enough to have the financial resources to do whatever I needed to do. I was able to take care of 2 households. I was able, man, to pay 2 attorneys, and I was able to go and do for myself. But I look at my other brothers and sisters who don't have those financial resources, and I'm like, this could really suck. Because you're going into with these judges and they're basically dictating you from a legal perspective. They care nothing about emotions. It's all about logic and untangling at that moment. And I say this, like, have your business together, be in purpose. And that's one of the things I try to tell guys, be in purpose. If you are not where you're supposed to be, then, man, we need to find that place. We need to start moving in that direction. So purpose is number 2. And the third thing is that sometimes things do happen, unfortunately, unexpectedly. You can't control anybody. And one of the things that was kind of jarring to me is that in our fair society, man, Nia, I could wake up tomorrow, and if I'm married, my woman could say, I don't want to do this no more. Call a lawyer. It's a very vulnerable feeling, but it's the truth. It's our society. It's our makeup. So looking at things from where they are, as opposed to what you presume them to be, the rose-colored glasses illustration, it is what it is. Yeah. But you have to be ready at any given moment to do what needs to be done. And so those are the things that I think it's about, in a matter of just being prepared, but just being yourself and having fun.
And I feel like there's a grief and loss process associated with divorce and separation of any relationship that we don't pay homage to, because we're so quick-winded to just not really put as much emphasis on connection as we really do. And I think that a lot of that has to do with just mainstream media really downplaying emotional connection and degrading men having connections in that form or fashion. I think that it's not portrayed as masculine to show up and be a true partner to a woman. I think it's like you get put in that category as being a special type of person, and that pressure gets put on you to perform and be that man. Yeah, I mean, well, not even a simp, but I think a man who's emotionally intelligent isn't a simp. I think a man who's emotionally intelligent is mature. Right. So I think someone who has not done the work to be emotionally intelligent, but utilizes his capacity to nurture and to provide as a way to override the emotional intelligence. I enjoy mature men, and I've had the experience of both, I think that mature men are more stable when they're emotionally intelligent, because they don't take things personally like that the woman does. And they're able to have conversations and kind of force the woman out of her emotional state to make her take ownership of, her part in the relationship. I think that in relationships, women are looking for that, but because of trauma that may be off-putting to them, because they feel a sense of vulnerability that they're not secure and safe enough to experience that. But I do feel like what I do with my kings that do my program is I challenge them to challenge the women in a vulnerable place, that don't focus on the outcome, because sometimes you're putting that person's life to deliver a message that only a man can deliver. But because we have such a need to possess the thing, we take the messages with us, and we hold on to experiences. Rather, if it was a experience that you had and you walked away with something that was unsettled, you deliver the message to her, like let her know what she did and how that made you feel. And then walk away. Don't leave, open doors. Don't leave stuff on the table, because then you're going to just pick that up and take that to the next relationship. And then that becomes like a pattern where nobody's learning.
So I got to say, so you hit on something right there. I got to tell you, because I went to a therapist basically after my divorce. And one of the things she told me, Landra, she said, James, you need to start dating. I was like, what are you talking about? That's like everybody, their mama tells you, you need to sit tight, you need to heal. Oprah and Ayala will say, man, go form a book club and go sit in the corner room and read until for a year, 2 years, and things like that. She said,
Right.
no. She said, no, you need to go date. And she took me to something, and I remember it was the statement, and it's based in reality therapy, but she says, we learn more about ourselves in the reflection of others. And I said to myself, wow. And so then now I'm saying, okay, I'm dating. I'm out here. I'm meeting women. Yeah, I got a little. I'm a little hurt at that point in time, but I'm meeting women. I'm meeting women. I'm meeting women. I mean, I'm running through them. And one of the things that I said at one point, I said, "Damn, man, what am I doing? I mean, I'm just going from person to person to person to person." But one of the things that my current girlfriend now, she said, James, you needed every one of them. You needed every one of them to teach you something that you weren't able to get. And I was like, you're right, because I did learn something from every one of them. I learned more about myself. I learned about what I wanted in life, the type of
Right.
partnership and the type of um there's a word that is escaping me right now, but there was this it factor that I was looking for. And so once I was able to get even closer to it, then I noticed that the type of person, the type of individuals that I was picking, it changed. Your mother and father say, hey, look, go find somebody with some money. I'm like, what? It's like, well, I got money, so I ain't worried about that. And so it's one of those things where all the different memes, cliches that you hear publicized within your lifetime, they are challenged and they are tested. And I think I've had the ability to do that testing for myself, and I'm on the other side of that, and I know what it looks like.
So, what are some key things about intimacy that you've explored that you want the audience to know, or maybe a message you could send to maybe someone who's struggling in a relationship, maybe a man who's struggling in a relationship to be more intimate or to express his level of intimacy to where he's being vulnerable to talk about his needs. What a couple of things Trent I heard was like men having poor boundaries and people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh gosh.
that's what I heard.
Avoiding attachment styles. Jeez. Yes.
Yeah. So what are some things
The,
that you can tell listeners like, hey, if you're going through this situation, you maybe want to do that. If you're going through this situation, some things that you wish that's, if you listen to this podcast back when you were going through your separation, a person who was giving information would have blessed you with some knowledge.
well, so I mischaracterized. It's not avoiding attachment style. It's anxiety-based attachment style.
Yeah.
And so,
Just
what
avoid
me,
it.
so me in a nutshell, what I linked that to was somewhat when people say a simp, I use that anxiety attachment style as somewhat of a synonymous. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because that is the person who has so much fear of losing that person that is next to them that they will compromise and do everything within themselves to keep them around. The people pleaser. And what I try to tell my fellas is that look, a people pleaser pleases no one, including themselves. So
Right.
while you are suppressing yourself to impress this other individual, then you end up in this state of duress totally. And what you have to do is to say, have to have those check-ins. You have those support systems. You have those individuals that say, hey, look, man, I went and I did this, man. Do you think this is right? I went and I bought this chain, or I went and bought this, man. Am I off balancing them? Everybody has that person, who sometimes can tell them about them. If you don't have that individual in your life, it's another conversation we need to have. But the fact is that someone who can tell you about you when you're out of pocket, when you're off, is so important. Because if you are not being yourself, if you are trying to play a role to please another person, that will not last. And you will end in a state of chaos. Because then when that person eventually leaves, not because of who you are, but because of what you were doing was not enough for them. And guess what? It wasn't all about you. It was more about what was going on in their lives, which is something I had to learn. Then you have a feeling of loss, as opposed to what I was able to come out on the other side of it was just saying, hey, what if she stays, let's go. There's a blessing and rejection. I'm all right with being me. And that's where I want my brothers to get to. It's that, man, whether a person, man, stays in your life or they leave or at any given point, it does not matter. Because if you are being yourself, you know who you are, and you're loving, and you can attach. I liken it this: when you are doing mindfulness, for those who know about it, and that calm and that peace that you have when you're in that state, that's something that you try to protect as you go throughout your day. Now, guess what? You're distracted. You're bombarded with all types of distractions throughout the day to try to rob you of that. But whenever you get into that moment, you're trying to protect that peace, that calm, that clarity that you have in that moment. So let's, man, frame that around the same things, such as, empowerment, strength, desire, determination, intentionality. As a man, when you begin to develop these things inside yourself, protect those things. And guess what? You're going to be bombarded by so much on a consistent basis. You're going to see women, man, who come, they're beautiful. You're going to see you're going to see all types of things that distract you, dissuade you from where your place and your center is. And that's what I try to tell my fellas. It's like, look, no, protect that, because that over there is that over there. But you live with yourself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if you let that go, there's more that can be lost in that moment.
That's very sound advice. Now it's very similar to what I tell my queens too with my group, women's group that I work with, is don't blame a man for being honest. It may not go along to according to your plan or you felt that things were, but any man who is slacking off or being distant or, taking you through roller coaster of emotions, that's a sign that he's not stable. And rather than look at him to find things wrong with him to further your emotional agenda, kind of put yourself in his shoes and see what's going on and start to figure out things from their perspective. One of the things that I realized I didn't do until I started working with Black men is treating them as if they have feelings just like me. It's crazy because we get in a relationship because we want the connection, but majority of the time women fail to see men on the same level as emotional capacity as they are. And I'm like that friend with my friends now, like, don't come to me because I'm not gonna give you a pity party. I'm gonna tell you straight up, responsibility wise, what needs to happen, because I understand both sides of the coin when women are very, very, very manipulative and boisterous about their needs, but seldom just give that same energy to the man. It's not choosing sides. It's just a place in that mindfulness and awareness to become equally yoked. Because oftentimes we'll want the vision, but not the emotional responsibility that takes along to have that person.
And you said word right there.
Focus on the vision. And so that's what I have wrong. But at the same time, I felt like I was justified in having right because they weren't on my level, quote unquote.
Well, I'm going to push. I'm not going to push back on you, but I'm going to do I guess an amen to what you were saying, because there's this narrative out there that men don't talk, and I'm here to one of the men out here to refute that. It's like, no, men do talk. We talk to one another all the time. Just check your local barbershop. Just check sports. We have all types of conversations and debates about politics, a lot of stuff. But I'm gonna tell you what happens within the dynamics of a relationship. So when some men that I've known, they've been vulnerable and they open up, and then when that vulnerability, as raw as it can be, is met with rejection and rebuke and rebuttal or emotionality that comes along with that, all of a sudden you've taught that man how to be vulnerable with you. You've taught that man that, okay, I can't come out to play with you per se. Why? Because if I'm being open with you and if I'm telling you how I truly feel about a situation, you're not going to be able to receive it. And what happens is that in that moment, it's like, man, that I've already closed one door where I can't go with her on. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? If you keep closing the doors in your relationship where we can't talk about this, we can't talk about, okay, so let me put some framework to it. We can't talk about sex. We can't talk about politics. We can't talk about money. We can't talk about children. We can't talk about legacy. We can't talk about purpose. We can't talk about. If you start closing so many of the doors, then you have to ask yourself, what can I do within this relationship? Then all of a sudden, now the relationship becomes avoidant. It's like a dearth. It's because we don't connect on any other thing. Because why? We can't have those healthy conversations. And what I've told somebody on a podcast I was on this morning is that we have to teach people to handle conflict more effectively. Conflict in and of itself is not always bad. It's not, it's just about how you handle it and how you are able to process through those moments. But because, man, we're in a state where if I don't agree with you or you don't agree with me, that makes you wrong, that makes me wrong. It's all or nothing, black or white thinking, doesn't really work too well. And I think that is what hurts us.
Yeah, and I think black and white thinking is very limited and doesn't allow us to express ourselves intimately. So I want to thank you for bringing that to the forefront. So I'm going to ask you a couple of exit questions because we're coming up on time. Cool. First, I want to thank you so much for being here and spreading that awareness and your knowledge. And then two, I want to give you the opportunity to let people know like where they can find you and some of the things that you have coming up. And then I'll follow up with our closing out questions. So you want to let people know where they can find you and what are some of the products you have coming up along the pipeline?
Definitely. So, man, you can find me. I'm starting June the 13th, I believe, or June the 13th. You'll be able to catch me 5 days a week on Power Me Up Radio Talk 24/7, affiliate of iHeartRadio. Just check your local listings or just, man, download the app. It's there. Also, too, you can find me on Apple, Stitcher, Deezer, iHeart Podcast. Man, look, I'm on all the popular ones. I'll say that, though. Mind of a Man podcast. Check me out on there. I have old episodes as well as new episodes coming. Instagram, Mind of a Man podcast. Twitter, Mind of a Man. The Facebook, James Bush the Therapist. Or better yet, this will do what Chris Carter says. James Bush Nashville. Google me. You'll find me. I'll pop right up.
Amen. You're doing something when you can Google a person. I feel it. So the personal question I'm going to ask you two. The first one is, if you were an instrument, what type of instrument would you be and why?
Hammer.
Okay. Explain to me why would you be a hammer?
Because the hammer is also often looked at as something that is very abrasive, and it has abrasive qualities, but it also has refining qualities. It can sometimes pound out the impurities within the metal. And so that, man, the final form of the object can be something that everyone beholds. And so a hammer.
I mean, a hammer philosophical. Look at that. All right. Last question is, when it comes to James Bush and his relationships, if you could tell your ex either a secret or give them some advice, what would it be and what would be the outcomes?
If I could tell them some advice, I would say, one, thank you for all that you did, because I would not be in this place I am right now without you. And I would just say, choose wisely next time.
Choose wisely. Well, this has been another amazing, authentic, free, opening relationship that we've built with our guest, James Bush, as he has shown up here fully transparent and authentic to his natural nature. I want to encourage all of the listeners and the guest listeners to just be a part of our network. If you have not joined, click the link, share this episode, download as many as you like. And also, if you would like to be in our podcast to just talk about your Black explorational journey and you feel like you have some sound advice to offer the audience, please write in and let us know so we can get you all set up to be on the show. This has, again, been another amazing episode of Black Exploration with Nia. I want to thank you, James, for being a part of our authentic network, and we're sending you off with blessings and more lessons. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye.